Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to paint a mountains and lake landscape. You will find a reference photo and my drawing at the very beginning of this video. Also, I included a couple of pictures about materials I'm using when I'm painting watercolors. And now I'm doing a brief sketch for my watercolor painting, and I'm only drawing big shapes like mountains and a lake line, and I don't really go into details because I will paint everything with my paints later on. My sketch is ready, so I'm turning over and I will wet all the back side of the paper with water, and I leave it to absorb. It can take 5 to 10 minutes. And now I'm ready to paint, so I will turn the sheet of paper again with my sketch up, and I'll have my colors ready for that, and I will keep the front side of the paper dry, so I will paint wet on dry. I'm using a flat brush for the sky and for the first wash because I want to cover the most of the surface easily. So I'm mixing my colors. You will see a list of colors in one of the corners at the top of the screen. So now it is a cerulean blue, alizarin crimson, Naples yellow, ultramarine, Van Dyke brown, and lavender. Lavender is optional. I just feel this color makes sky a bit softer, so that's why I'm using lavender in my landscape. And I need to say, especially for beginners, if you don't have some of these colors, don't go and buy that color right away, because sometimes you can find an alternative colors depending on what do you have on your palette already, so try to use that. And for example, here I have a lavender, which is not essential color. I just love to add that color to my sky area. So you can try to mix it on your own or just skip it, because sky would be nearly the same with the other colors without lavender. I've made two mixes of colors. One is blue and the other one is reddish. So the blue one is a bit muddy color. I added a Van Dyke brown to that. Also a little bit of yellow, red and blue, ultramarine blue, next to the cerulean. So a bit of everything from the palette right now. So it makes sky look less saturated. So it looks calm and not as bright. The first line, the top line of the sky, I painted blue, and then I keep adding some warm lines in between of the blue. So I keep adding the yellow or red line so it flows down and it makes a lovely transition to the sky. I will keep this painting at the angle. I'm holding this artboard with my hand, so all colors would flow down and they will mix with each other. That's why I'm having this smooth transition. And I don't have hard lines between the colors, between blue and warm yellow and red areas on the sky. I'm mixing alizarin crimson, ultramarine and Van Dyke brown. so I can paint the distant mountains. And I keep adding more brown or more blue to that mix, so I can have some variation in the color in my mountain. So I'm going to cover the entire mountain shape with this mix. The top of the mountain looks cooler for me, so I'm using only blue and brown for the top of the mountain. Make sure you keep painting light and transparent, so all mixes you apply, they can't be too dark right now because we're going to apply all dark colors later on. As you can see in the video, I have a note at the top of the corner, so I've added a burnt sienna. So I want to add a bit warmer color to the bottom of the mountain. Now I have the shape of the mountain painted, so I will add a couple of dark spots to that, a shadow to the mountain. So I keep using the same colors. It's alizarin crimson, Van Dyke brown, and ultramarine blue. And now I will add some color to the mountain area, mostly at the bottom of the mountain. So it's a sub green mixed together with the burnt sienna. Now I'm taking more burnt sienna, and I will add this color to the middle part of the land, just at the center of the lake. So, and I'm not really cleaning my palette, so I'm just throw this burnt sienna to the colors wherever I have on my palette already. And just to get this burnt sienna glow and be a bit brighter, because this is what my plan, so I'm adding a alizarin crimson, so that will look very bright then. Also, I keep switching the colors because I want to see some variation in the colors. So I have this mix of burnt sienna, alizarin crimson, and some blue, and then I switch to a green. And because I have my back side of the paper wet, so I have more time to experiment with the colors. And just to show the volume of this part of the land, so I'm adding a bit of a darker color, which is alizarin crimson, blue, ultramarine blue, and Van Dyke brown. And now I'm going to make a mix for the water, and I'm using blue, red and brown. Blue is Blue Lake, brown is Van Dyke Brown, and alizarin crimson. This color, Blue Lake, it's non-granulating, so I decided to have this color for the water because I wanted to get a crisp look of the water. I'm painting a bit darker from the left side, and I will leave a white paper for a while from the right, and then I'll come back and with a clean damp brush I will soften the lines, the edges around the land area. You have very little water on your brush right now, it's almost dry, so you just spread the paint and you will keep this right side of the lake lighter comparing to the left side. When you work with your brush this way, painting around painted area, be very careful as pigments will start to spread and leak in each other. I'm touching the bottom line of the land and it will flow down a bit, so it will give me a look of a reflection, and which is good. And now I'm going to move to the foreground, and I choose a very bright color for that. I'm getting an Indian yellow or Cambodia yellow, whatever you have on your palette. And I'm going to cover all the rest of the paper with this yellow color. And when I paint below the water line, below the lake, I'm leaving a tiny line unpainted. This will prevent colors to leak and mix with each other. And now I'm going to add different colors to the yellow I already have on the painting. So I'm getting alizarin crimson, burnt sienna and Van Dyke brown. And I'm just painting random lines across this field just to add more color. And I'm gradually moving to darker colors. I'm using the same colors, which is Van Dyke brown, burnt sienna, alizarin crimson and ultramarine. So that makes a very dark and warm brown color. And I'm painting with the side of my flat brush, but you can switch to a smaller brush if you feel comfortable with that. I noticed that reflections on the lake are leaking down a bit, so I'm going to fix this problem, and I have this mop brush with a very soft goat's hair bristles, so I'm just kind of sweeping on sides, and this will prevent paints to leak down. Now I got my small brush for details, and I'm mixing even more a darker color, so which is ultramarine, alizarin and Van Dyke brown. So all the same colors but less water. So because we have this area of yellow field, it's still wet, so we can make a creamy texture of the paint on the palette, and you just paint in some details. And at this stage I'm painting only a line, strips and dots in between of the lines, just to show some direction of the grass. And at the reference photo, we will see that this corner at the left, it has some grass and more details at this corner. So I decided to paint some vertical lines. That's for the grass, and I will add more details at the very end of the painting. And when I'm painting this grass here, I'm not too focused to make this grass look beautiful and correct from the first go, because this is all is still an underpainting and first wash before we add any more details. Later on, when we finish with this field and with the grass painting, we're going to dry the first wash, and you will see how colors on the paper will fade. And after that, we can paint more details on top of this wash. I'm drying my painting right now with the hairdryer, but I want to keep the back of the paper wet. So I just leave the side of the paper and just repeat, and I just apply a water underneath. I'm getting a round brush number 6, and this is a Skoda Sable brush. And I'm making a mix of two colors. It's ultramarine blue and Van Dyke brown. And I have prepared another few colors. I will add them later on. And I'm going to paint a shaded areas of the mountains. I have this basic color for the shadow. That's my main mix. But sometimes I would add a little bit of ultramarine blue, so this brown would lean towards the blue side a bit more, or I would add alizarin crimson so it would look reddish. So I keep changing the color so this shadow doesn't look boring and flat. And keep in mind that this mix of the shadow on my palette is transparent. It's not very thick. It's not like really loaded with the color, because I'm going to apply another layer of the shadows later on. Also, mountains are far away from our point of view, so we can't go too dark. So it's safer. It's better to paint lighter rather than darker. Sometimes I would soften the edges like I'm doing right now, just to have a smooth transition. And it's only for the bottom part of the mountain, because top side of the mountains are very sharp and with a very straight lines. And here I continue to add some lines at the mountain, but I'm using a burnt sienna with that mix, so it has some variation in color. and I will add even more details to the mountain, and it's a very light and transparent mix of burnt sienna. And now I continue to paint with the different colors. I could mix alizarin crimson and ultramarine blue with a bit of a burnt sienna. This is a very transparent mix. I don't mix any darker colors right now. So my second mix is sub green with the burnt sienna. And I keep painting with some lines and shapes with some kind of a pattern. So I'm leaving some unpainted areas. So just to show that the land is uneven in that side. I would mix a dark brown color right now with the colors I've mentioned. You can see that in my palette. So it's burnt sienna, alizarin crimson, ultramarine blue, and Van Dyke brown. And I keep adding details to the mountain. And I've mixed a bit darker brown right now from the previous colors I used. Just less water. It's more saturated color, so I just add a couple of dots inside of already painted area. That will add more volume to the painting. I have a mix of a very bright color. It looks like burnt sienna but brighter. So it's a Indian yellow or Cambodia yellow. For your choice, I'm not sure what you have on your palette. We just need a transparent and very bright yellow. Then I used alizarin crimson, so if you mix them together you would get a bright orangey color. And just to cool it down a little bit, I added an ultramarine blue. So I will cover the middle part of the land, those two tiny islands there. I will cover with that bright orangey color. And I will add a brown color. That's from the previous mix. I painted the mountains with that color. So you just keep switching the colors. You can't be wrong, really. You just use one color, then you can continue with the other color, and they all will look good on this area. And I will mix a bit darker color for the bottom of this island. So it's ultramarine blue, alizarin crimson, and Van Dyke brown. So it's the same color what I've used for the mountain area. In this case, my brown mix looks a bit more purple because I've added more ultramarine blue and more crimson. Because I think this purplish color would look better with the yellow color I already have in this area. So I'm mixing the same brown what I've used before. It's alizarin crimson, ultramarine and Van Dyke brown. And with the side of my brush, I just scrub a bit against the paper just to add some texture. And I'm throwing in some green color, which is sub-green inside of the yellows and browns here on the field. And I'm going to add a couple of lines for the grass. The lines would be darker, and it's the same brown what I used before. I've mixed a very cool gray color. It's a Van Dyke brown and ultramarine blue. And I'm going to paint a deep shadows at the mountains. My mix is still transparent and not too dark because we don't want to get too dark lines. And this is a third layer for the mountain, so even a transparent layer would look dark, dark enough for this mountain. I just move my brush up and down and I'm painting a thicker shadows. So I have a shadow area, then just a blank, I leave it unpainted, a couple of lines inside, and then a shadow again. I've looked at the reference. I understand the pattern of the shadows, so I'm not looking at the reference anymore. I just understand it and I just keep painting. So all these lines are from my imagination, really. So you don't have to paint exactly the same what you see on the picture, just to get some idea and presentation of it. Here I'm adding a green color, which is sap green. You can mix that together with a burnt sienna or paint with burnt sienna separately, just next to the sap green, and they will mix with each other at the paper. I'm going to dry my paper with the hair dryer, and I'm moving to a next and final step for my painting. I have an eraser brush. This is a watercolor eraser brush. I'm using that pretty often. I just love this brush. So I'm just rubbing off the paint of the paper because I want to show the grass texture at this left bottom corner of the painting. If you don't have this kind of a brush, you can use a synthetic brush with the harder bristles, and you can just lift the color of the paper. Alternatively, you can skip this stage of painting a grass because your work already looking complete and finished. Some people prefer to keep painting light and transparent without diving into details, which is absolutely normal. Now this painting is nearly finished, and I hope you enjoyed this video. And if you have any questions regarding materials or watercolor technique, please let me know in the comments section. And I hope you learned something new today.